Chosen one, the attempt to silence your truth has backfired with divine intensity. Somebody wants you to stop talking, but God just gave you an even bigger microphone, and the very voice they tried to suppress is now echoing into spaces they can no longer reach. While they suffer through nightmares of your name being tied to things they cannot take back, your influence is expanding. Let us go all the way back, before the nightmares, before the walls started closing in on the people who opposed you, and before the ground began to shift under the very operation that was designed to stop you. Let us go back to the moment the first mistake was made. Someone looked at you and decided you were manageable. That is the exact word that fits, manageable. Not dangerous, not worth serious concern. You were someone who could be redirected, minimized, and if necessary, quietly shelved without consequence. And here is the honest part. In that early season, you gave people reasons to believe it. Not because you were lacking anything. You were simply still learning the weight of what you were carrying. You were still in the process of discovering what your voice could actually do in a room. You had not yet stress-tested your own resilience under real pressure. So from the outside, watching from a comfortable distance and calculating their moves, you looked like someone who would eventually fold. A bet was placed, a confident one. The terms were simple. You would get tired, get confused, get overwhelmed, and go quiet before you ever fully discovered who you were. That bet was placed and then promptly forgotten. The people who made it went back to running their operation and stopped watching. And that decision, right there, in that moment of comfortable distraction, is where everything started going wrong for them. Comfortable people stop paying attention. Once you feel certain you have something contained, you stop monitoring it, while their attention was elsewhere, while the confidence of having you figured out was lulling the opposition into a false sense of stillness. You were changing, quietly, steadily, in ways that nobody around you could fully see yet. You were becoming something their bet never accounted for. Everything that follows is the consequence of that one miscalculation. There was no declaration, no confrontation, no moment where you stood up and announced yourself. The shift came from something far quieter than a confrontation and far more powerful than any strategy. You opened your mouth. Maybe it started in a room that felt completely ordinary. Maybe it was a single sentence spoken to someone who was not even the main audience. Maybe you were simply being yourself, articulating clearly, moving with a certain natural authority, saying the thing that most people in that room were consciously holding back, and someone nearby heard it. Something in that person cracked open the moment your words landed. That is the part nobody on the other side could have predicted or explained, because it was not a campaign and it was not a coordinated effort. It was you, moving through the ordinary flow of your life, doing what you naturally do, and something began to move in the atmosphere around you. Here is what carries weight going forward, that single, seemingly insignificant moment of you just being yourself planted something that nobody was watching for. It planted a seed, and seeds do not announce their arrival. Seeds go underground. Seeds are silent and completely invisible, right up until the moment they become utterly undeniable. While the opposition was comfortable and certain they had you contained, a root system was developing underneath everything, and it was going to change the entire landscape in ways that nobody was prepared for. God was watching that seed from the beginning, and God had already decided what it was going to become. There is a layer to your situation that most people never examine, and it is the layer that explains why the opposition you experienced became so specific, so personal, and so coordinated the moment you started stepping into your purpose. The people working against your voice recognized something in you before you fully recognized it in yourself. That is how it always works. The anointing on a life registers in the spiritual atmosphere before it fully registers in the awareness of the person carrying it. The assignment draws opposition early, sometimes before you have even completely stepped into what you were made for. The jealousy, the sabotage, the coordinated campaign to keep you quiet, none of it was random. All of it was a direct response to something real, something powerful, and something that certain people urgently needed to contain before it grew too large to manage. Your voice carried the specific ability to unlock things, shift things, expose things, and liberate things. And every single one of those abilities was a direct threat to what certain people had been quietly building in corners that required darkness to survive. If this message aligned with your purpose, hype this video so fellow chosen ones can find their confirmation. Here is the part that should land differently for you. To put a muzzle on a voice, a person first has to acknowledge to themselves that the voice has real power. Every move made to silence you was an involuntary confession of your authority. Every resource spent trying to manage your reputation was an admission that your reputation carried actual weight. Every person recruited to help minimize your influence was evidence that one voice alone was not sufficient to handle the job, because what you carry required an entire team to attempt to counter it. People do not construct elaborate systems to neutralize things that are irrelevant. The scale of any operation built against you is a direct and honest measurement of the threat you registered. In trying to shrink you in the eyes of the world, the opposition announced to the world exactly how significant you are. God had a clock running that nobody could see. Someone in your world, and it is possible that more than one person is involved, got away with something. A move was made in what felt like a safe, unobserved moment. Something was said, something was planted, something was set in motion with the full expectation that the passage of enough time would make it permanently safe. And for a while that expectation seemed to hold. Season after season passed without any visible consequence. The air around the situation felt clear. The confidence of having escaped accountability settled into something that began to feel permanent. But here is the fundamental misunderstanding about how divine timing actually operates. Every quiet season was not debt being erased. Every period of calm was not safety accumulating. The reckoning was not retreating into the past. It was building forward. It was compounding. It was growing in precision and in weight with every single day that passed in silence. The longer the quiet held, the more pressure was building behind it. And now you can sense the shift. Something has changed in the atmosphere around you. The strategy that was designed to diminish you is no longer landing the way it once did. And the person who counted on your silence, the one who assured themselves that enough time passing meant the situation was permanently resolved, is feeling something new for the very first time. Something tight, something uneasy. The specific creeping dread of someone who is beginning to realize that the clock they believed was winding down has actually been winding up this entire time. The walls are not closing in on you. They are closing in on the people who built them, chosen ones. They never expected this, and they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen one, channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and now we have something they truly can't silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine, and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. You can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny Engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack. Your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones. Press play. That's all. For $1, you switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. In every environment, in every community, in every circle, there exists a person who has never lost at their own game, the undisputed authority on manipulation and narrative control, the person who has run the same playbook season after season without a single failure, the isolation move, the preemptive discrediting campaign, the coordinated reputation effort, the carefully constructed alliances specifically designed to cut off anyone who might become a serious problem. This person stopped questioning the playbook long ago because the playbook had never failed. They found the moves that worked and repeated them with total confidence because nobody had ever made them pay for running those moves. And then the playbook got run on you. The reputation campaign did not stop you. The coordinated effort to create walls tight enough that you would shrink, apologize, and disappear produced the exact opposite of the intended result. You opened your mouth wider. That outcome has never happened to this person before. And that specific result, you not folding, you not going quiet, you not performing according to the script that had worked on everyone before you, fundamentally changed the energy of the situation. It was not that you launched a counterattack, because the opposition knows how to handle a direct fight. What the opposition does not know how to handle is a playbook that simply does not land. Every calculated move, every measured counter-strategy, all of it bouncing back without effect. Because the thing backing your voice is not operating on the same frequency as the game being played against it. You did not out-strategize the opposition. You simply had something that their entire system was built on the assumption that you did not have. You had God backing the microphone. Understanding exactly how a voice suppression effort is constructed and exactly where it fails is going to reframe everything you have been observing around you. Every campaign built to silence a specific voice follows the same architecture. First, the narrative is managed. The goal is to get ahead of your story by planting an unflattering version of you in the minds of people who have not yet formed their own impression. You walk into a new space already carrying the weight of a story someone else wrote about you before you have opened your mouth, before anyone has given you a fair hearing. The aim is to ensure that your own arrival feels like a confirmation of something already established, rather than a genuine first impression. Second, your access is targeted. The people closest to you, the ones who trust you, amplify you, and speak well of you, become pressure points. A carefully placed doubt here, a leading question there, a comment designed to create quiet uncertainty in the people most aligned with you. The goal is to shrink the echo around your voice so that when you speak, fewer people are in a position to fully receive and carry what you say. Third, and this is the most critical stage, the campaign goes internal. The most effective silencing is the silencing a person performs on themselves. Self-suppression leaves no fingerprints and requires no ongoing maintenance from the outside. If the opposition can plant enough doubt in your perception of your own clarity and your own authority to speak, then you become the one closing your own mouth. No external force required. Here is precisely where the campaign against you broke down, at the third stage. You refused to silence yourself. Something in you would not accept the version of yourself being constructed by the opposition. You kept trusting what you actually witnessed. You kept speaking what you actually know. And because the internal silencing failed, the entire structure began weakening from the inside out. Your presence continues to undo the planted narrative before it can take root in the people who actually meet you. The access that was narrowed keeps finding new pathways, and the coordinated effort to neutralize your influence before you reached a certain altitude became, instead, the very thing that gave your voice a gravity and a credibility that no manufactured story could ever produce. The campaign was built to stop you. The campaign became your credential. Now slow down here, because something specific needs attention, something that may have felt completely ordinary when it happened, but was anything but ordinary. There was a moment when you were not performing. You were not in any kind of broadcast mode. You were simply talking, in a regular space, in the flow of an ordinary day, and someone was close enough to overhear what you said, not the person you were directly addressing. A bystander, someone standing at the edge of the moment who was never intended to be your audience. And what came out of your mouth in that casual, unplanned exchange hit that bystander like something they had been waiting to receive for a very long time. It landed with a precision that had nothing to do with your intention in that moment. It found something in them that was ready to be found, and they carried it somewhere. They said something to someone. They moved what you said into a space that you had never entered, and something happened there that you have not yet fully seen the effects of. God placed you in that spot deliberately. God placed that person in earshot with intention. The routing of that moment, the precise orchestration of who was standing where and what was said, was not your logistics to manage. That was divine placement, operating completely outside of any strategy the opposition could track or intercept. Proximity cannot be fully controlled from the outside. Every conversation you have in passing, every word spoken in a room that feels neutral, every moment you show up somewhere and simply open your mouth as yourself, any of those moments can become a transmission point for something the opposition has been working to keep buried. Your voice does not require a perfectly prepared stage to do what it was designed to do. Your voice requires only openness. You stay open, you keep moving without apology, you keep showing up as yourself, and God handles who is in range to receive it. Something is actively happening in spaces ahead of you, and you need to understand what it is. Or you walk into a new space and something is already present, a conversation that happened about you, something you said that was passed along through someone else, a story attached to your name that reached the room before your feet did. In some spaces, that advance arrival has already done something to the atmosphere. People are leaning forward before you open your mouth. Curiosity is already present. Something has already shifted the air before you arrive. That is anointing with a forwarding address. Now consider what that same dynamic is doing in the spaces where the opposition has been operating comfortably. Your name surfaces in the middle of a carefully managed situation, maybe as a direct reference, maybe as a distant mention of something you said, or somewhere you showed up unexpectedly, and the room changes, the energy shifts. Questions begin forming that nobody is saying out loud yet, but that everyone in the space is beginning to think. The person who needs the atmosphere to stay controlled watches it become unsettled, because the voice that was supposed to stay outside of that room found a way in regardless. You do not have to be physically present to be powerful. A bigger microphone reaches rooms you have not yet entered and finds people you have not yet met. It keeps moving long after the moment of speaking has passed. And this is precisely why the opposition cannot simply outlast you. The strategy was to manage the narrative long enough for the signal to fade on its own. But a voice backed by God does not fade with the passage of time. It compounds. The longer it transmits, the deeper it saturates. Every season that passes without your voice being silenced is another season of that signal spreading further into territory that cannot be reclaimed. There is no timeline on which they outlast what God decided to amplify. There is something specific about your situation that is more significant than it appears on the surface. You walked away from something carrying far more than the people who remained ever realized you had. Maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a role, an environment, or a circle that had been constructed around keeping certain truths in place and certain voices carefully managed. And when you made your exit, when you transitioned out of that space, the prevailing assumption was that your departure meant your silence. The logic was simple: distance equals containment, and being out of the room means being out of the picture. But you did not leave empty-handed. You left fluent. You left with a first-hand, lived, witnessed understanding of how certain things operate from the inside. You carry the kind of knowledge that cannot be faked, cannot be coached into someone who was not there, and cannot be dismissed with a wave of the hand by someone who needs it to go away. What makes your clarity specifically unsettling is not that you are on a campaign to use what you know. It is that you are coherent, you are grounded, you can articulate what you witnessed without rage, without desperation, and without the kind of instability that makes it easy to write a voice off. You carry the composure of someone who has had real time to understand exactly what they lived through. A calm, clear voice telling a true story is the most destabilizing thing imaginable to someone who needs that story to stay untold. That is the specific quality you carry right now. And the people observing your composure, your continued willingness to speak with that level of clarity and groundedness, understand exactly what it means. The clock is running, the signal is getting louder, and the window available for containment is closing. You are not who you were when this season began. And that statement carries more weight than it might seem on the surface. The version of you that first stepped into this opposition had genuine gifts, real purpose, and something powerful inside. But that version was also still being formed, still developing the kind of internal infrastructure that an assignment of this size actually requires to be sustained. The process of being opposed, isolated, underestimated, and pressed against every possible wall was not the enemy of your development. It was the specific curriculum your development required. Every moment you were overlooked and chose to stay standing built something in you. Every time your story was distorted by someone else and you chose to hold on to what you actually know is true, that built something. Every time you could have gone quiet and chose instead to stay open, keep moving and keep speaking, that built something that cannot be replicated by any easier path. Repetition under real resistance produces a kind of strength that carries no showiness. It is deep, it is load-bearing. It looks completely still on the surface and is immovable underneath. It is the kind of strength that causes people who once dismissed you to take a long, recalibrating second look. The people who first encountered you at the beginning of this season and the people who encounter you now are not meeting the same person. Something grew in the seasons the opposition thought you were merely enduring. Something developed in the private spaces where no one was paying attention, and that development is now fully visible in the way you carry yourself, in the weight your words carry, and in the way pressure no longer moves you the way it once did. The entire opposition strategy was designed for a version of you that no longer exists. And a strategy built for the person you used to be has no power over the person you have become. Not everyone generating noise around your situation is carrying a secret that your voice will expose. Some of the opposition energy around you is coming from a simpler and ultimately more revealing place. Some people are simply bored with their own lives, and you are too compelling to ignore. These are the people who have no specific grievance they could clearly name if pressed directly. What they have is a consuming habit of monitoring you. They are consistently among the first to know what you said, where you moved, and what changed in your world. They track every development in your life while performing visible disinterest. They invest real mental and emotional energy in forming opinions about your choices that have nothing at all to do with them, and then they work to ensure those opinions find an audience. What they do not seem to realize is how loudly that behavior speaks about the power you carry. You do not obsessively monitor things that hold no significance for you. You do not dedicate real emotional bandwidth to people who have no weight in your imagination. The fact that you occupy ongoing mental real estate in the minds of people who publicly claim to dismiss you, the fact that your name keeps surfacing in rooms and conversations you are not part of, is honest evidence of something the opposition will not say out loud. You are doing the thing they cannot do, going where they cannot go, and becoming who they cannot become. And rather than using that awareness as fuel for their own movement forward, they direct it entirely toward watching yours. Let them watch. Every pair of eyes that cannot look away is a witness. And when God is ready, witnesses have a way of becoming testifiers. Here is the center of everything. This is the axis around which the entire story turns. The reason the opposition ultimately loses is faith, specifically yours. Real, tested, proven faith, the kind that moves before the evidence arrives, the kind that steps forward before the landing is confirmed, is the single variable that dismantles every control system ever constructed. Control depends entirely on predictability. The architecture of manipulation requires that the people inside it stay afraid enough of loss to remain in place. When someone operates from genuine faith, when the outcome they are walking toward is not dependent on what they can currently see with their eyes, that person becomes impossible to manage and impossible to contain. You took the leap. At the moment it may not have felt like faith at all. It may have simply felt like the only available move, like staying in place had become more dangerous than jumping forward. But every time you stepped toward something before the path was fully lit, every time you opened your mouth when silence would have been the measurably safer option, every time you chose the aligned thing over the comfortable thing, faith was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was moving you forward on a frequency that no opposition strategy can intercept. Every time you moved and the move landed, their internal model of what was possible for you had to be rebuilt from scratch. Every time the leap proved real, their prediction about your ceiling had to be revised upward again. Every time their calculation about where you would stop turned out to be wrong, the confidence that had been the entire foundation of their operation eroded a little further. They were not just losing ground against you, they were losing faith in their own game. And when the person running a manipulation system stops believing in the system begins collapsing under its own weight. You kept moving, you kept speaking, you kept showing up. Every move produced something real and lasting, not because your execution was flawless, but because the thing carrying you forward does not run on human strategy, does not require human permission, and does not answer to any authority the opposition has access to. That is the moment the story turned irrevocably in your direction, not when they fell, but when you leaped, landed, and kept going. When God gives a person a bigger microphone, the instinct is to measure the upgrade in terms of volume, how many people are now listening, how far the signal now reaches. Reach matters, but it is not the most important part of the upgrade. The most important thing about the bigger microphone is precision. God does not amplify a voice simply to fill space. God amplifies a voice to find the specific people who have been waiting without a name for what they were waiting for exactly what that voice carries. Right now, in spaces you have not yet entered, there are people sitting with an unresolved hunger. They are not lost. They are simply waiting for a frequency they have not encountered yet. They are waiting for a voice that speaks the specific truth you carry, in the specific way you carry it, with the specific authority that only comes from having actually lived what you lived. Those people will not find you through a deliberate search. Your voice will reach them in forms they were not looking for, through something passed along in conversation, through an unexpected encounter, through a moment that arrives without warning and cracks something open in them that they did not know was sealed. They will feel your words land before they can explain why. They will exhale with a recognition they have no language for. That is the precision of the upgraded microphone, doing exactly what it was calibrated to do. Now here is what that precision means for the people trying to shrink your reach. They have been treating your influence like a volume problem. Their entire strategy rests on the assumption that if they reduce your audience enough, the microphone stops mattering. But God is not running a volume game. One person reached by the right voice at the right moment can redirect more than a passive crowd ever could. One divinely orchestrated connection, one room entered, one conversation that finds exactly the right ears can heal something, shift something, expose something buried, or restore something that was supposed to stay permanently hidden. The opposition has been counting listeners. God has been measuring impact. These are not the same game, and you are winning the one that actually matters. The stability moving into your life is the specific kind that has been stress tested, which is built under real pressure, refined through genuine opposition, and forged in seasons that would have dismantled anything constructed on a weaker foundation. What is coming into your life cannot be easily disrupted because it was not built under easy conditions. It is not the fragile kind of prosperity that requires constant defending. It is the kind that holds precisely because of what it was built through. The connections moving in your direction are not accidental. They are aligned, drawn to who you actually are, not to a managed, softened, strategically reduced version of you. The people God is sending do not require you to be smaller to feel comfortable around you. They are specifically drawn to the full weight of what you carry, and your voice, the precise thing that has been targeted for suppression, is the instrument through which all of it arrives. The testimony coming out of this season is going to reach people in places you have not yet imagined. It is going to travel through channels that have nothing to do with your own planning and find exactly the people who need it at exactly the moments they are ready to receive it. In the spirit, you have already arrived at the place your physical reality is in, the process of catching up to. The doors are already open. The resources are already moving. The right people are already being positioned. You are not standing here wondering whether any of this is real. You are simply walking forward into what has already been established on your behalf. You did not go through everything you went through in order to arrive at this moment inadequately prepared. The seasons you endured were the specific preparation required for the specific rooms you are now walking into. And the microphone you are carrying into those rooms is not the modest version you started with. It is the upgraded version, tested, proven, and precisely calibrated for the reach that is now yours. You are not standing at the end of a hard season. You are standing at the grand opening of everything that hard season was quietly constructing on your behalf. The wealth is real, not just financial but relational, spiritual and generational. The expansion is real. The impact of what you carry, the kind that outlasts you and reaches people not yet born, is real and already moving. God did not give you a platform. God gave you a frequency. And that frequency has been broadcasting through every ordinary conversation, every unplanned moment of openness, every casual word spoken in earshot of exactly the right person. The walls closing in on the opposition is simply what it sounds like when a broadcast finally reaches the room where the deception has been quietly living. So here is what you do now, not tomorrow, not when the conditions align more favorably, right now. You open your mouth with your whole chest behind it. You walk into every room God places in front of you, carrying the full, unedited weight of what you have lived, learned, and come out the other side of. You stop softening yourself for the comfort of people who need you contained. You stop whispering the thing you were built to project. You stop waiting for permission from the very people whose entire strategy was built around hoping you would ask for it. Your voice is carrying your story intact, not edited for palatability, not reduced to the parts that ask nothing of anyone, not scrubbed clean of the authority that comes from having been in the room and walked out knowing exactly what was in it. That kind of voice does not need perfect conditions to do what it was made to do. It needs one thing: to stay open, to keep transmitting, to keep showing up as the full, unmanaged, uncontained version of you in every ordinary space God places before you. Somewhere right now, someone is in the dark, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling, unable to get your name and your voice out of their mind because they are attached to something they cannot undo. And somewhere else, on the other side of that same sky, you are standing at a grand opening. The doors are wide, the resources are moving, the people aligned with your purpose are finding their way to you through pathways that were not built by human planning. The voice that was supposed to stay contained is reaching rooms that no containment strategy can access. That is the same story. Two entirely different experiences of it. They bet against the wrong person. They tried to silence the wrong voice. And God's answer to every single move made against your mouth was not to protect your voice by keeping it small and safe. God's answer was to hand you a bigger microphone, put you in front of a larger room, and let the frequency do exactly what it was always designed to do. Somebody wanted you to stop talking, and God just gave you an even bigger microphone. You are not just talking anymore, you are booming, and the world is about to hear every single word you were always meant to